So it's time for movie reviews once again this Friday, and I am here with Andy Godfrey, film critic and movie reviewer extraordinaire.
You've said that before. You can keep saying it again. I don't mind.
I think it's a
It's
pretty good
great to be
title.
with you on with you, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to everyone listening.
Yes, hello, and it is fantastic to have you with me once again. Really, really good fun to look at movies, and of course, I've learned a lot. I don't know about anyone else, but I've learned an awful lot about movies that
There's
I'd never
always
even
new
heard of.
things to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, is film industry is such a big part of our lives. It seems nowadays. It is a fantastic way of unwinding and relaxing. Movies entertain you. They can, as you've said many times, they can teach us things about ourselves and history, which is amazing. So it's a big topic in today's world.
Yeah, and people talk about the golden age of Hollywood. Normally, they refer to that period as the 40s. Okay, I don't think there's ever been a golden age of Hollywood. Personally, I think there's been one long golden age, because whichever decade you look at, be it the 30s, the 40s, the 60s, the 70s, the 2000s, there are great films in each of those decades. And actually, if you go back to what's the so-called golden age of Hollywood in the 40s, there's some pretty terrible films that were made. So to me, there's no such thing as a golden age. It's just having films available to watch. And I think in this day and age, as I've said to you before, we used to go and see films at the cinema when I was growing up, and you wouldn't see them again for 2 years until they turned up on TV. These days, you can still get them at home while they're at the cinema. And I think so much has changed. But yeah, we all love a good movie. I don't really know anyone who doesn't love a good movie. And certainly on the dark, cold winter nights to sit down, and maybe with the family or even on your own and sit in the dark and watch a good film. I think it's anything quite like it, really. So we've got some good films to review this week as well.
Yes, last week you mentioned a couple. One was Captain America: Brave New World. The other was it a fourth sequel to the Bridget Jones
Yeah,
film.
Bridget Jones, number 4. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I've seen both of those. So shall we talk about them?
that'd be good.
Let's go for it. So first of all, let's deal with Captain America. First thing to say is that I am not really up on my Marvel timeline. Okay. I'm not a big comic book hero fan. To me, a lot of these films are the same. Bad guy appears, superhero comes, has a one-to-one fight with him at the end. Everybody's fine, apart from the millions of people who died in the buildings that have been destroyed in the whatever city it is that nobody ever thinks about. Okay, so I went into this thinking, okay, it's another superhero film. I've got a fairly good idea of what's going to happen, and true to form, there is a supervillain that Captain America has to deal with. Now, Captain America has got a suit that enables him to fly. He's also got this massive shield that it seems can withstand anything, even a nuclear blast. And he uses to cover it. He also uses it like a boomerang, where he throws it into a load of bad guys, and all the bad guys are hit by the shield and they're knocked out, and the shield comes back to him. In this film, he is asked by the President of America, played by Harrison Ford. And you pointed out that Harrison Ford has played the President of America before. I have to say, probably make a better job than the current one is doing, but we won't get into that. Harrison Ford is the President of America, but Harrison Ford, as the President of America, has got a secret. And I certainly didn't see the twist ending coming, so that was a nice surprise. I'm not going to blow it for anybody, but the President of America has a deep, dark secret. He's asked Captain America to help him defeat a bad guy. And it's all fairly standard comic book hero stuff. I thought it was very mediocre. That said, there is one scene set in the Pacific Ocean where Japanese fighters, air fighters, are bombing American warships because they've been told by the bad guy that America is about to launch an attack on Japan. So you've got warships firing their cannons at fighters in the sky. You've got fighters firing at warships. And in between, you've got Captain America flying around trying to stop the Japanese firing and trying to stop the Americans firing, because this is a war over nothing that's been set up by a bad guy, and he knows it. That is an impressive scene, I have to say. I thought that some of the CGI in this film was a bit dodgy, but that is an impressive scene. And it was worth going to see it on the big screen for this fairly elongated scene with F1 fighters in the sky, battleships in the ocean, Captain America flying all over the place in between them, diverting missiles with his shield and trying to stop them fighting, basically. And I thought that was quite good. The film does bring an element of politics into the superhero universe, which is often lacking. Superman 2, the bad guys from the planet Krypton took over the White House and forced the American president to kneel before them. But it's not often that we get a great deal about politics in these films. For obvious reasons, all we want to see is the smash, bang, crash, bang, wallop stuff, you know? But this does, and it was better for that, and Harrison Ford is okay. If you like comic book hero movies with lots of action, lots of crash, lots of bang, lots of wallop, you're going to enjoy this. I wasn't uber enthusiastic. I thought it was a bit mediocre, apart from that one scene. But others I know have enjoyed it. So there you go.
Okay, so a new Marvel film featuring Harrison Ford, and it's Anthony Mackie that plays the new Captain America, isn't it?
He's a new Captain America, and he's often being compared in the film with the old Captain America. That's quite a nice little touch that they've acknowledged her as a new Captain America. It's not the same person playing the same character. You know, it's not just a different actor like James Bond. A different actor playing the same character. This is a new Captain America, and as I say, it's fine. It's fine. It kept me out of the cold for a couple of hours, and I was impressed with the battle scene. So that's worth seeing on the big screen. Something else that's new. Oh, by the way, Captain America, because we always like to inform people, it's a 12A certificate.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a little bit of bad language. Other than that, it's a 12A certificate. Okay. Now, something that's got a lot of bad language in it is the new Bridget Jones film. So as you said, this is the fourth Bridget Jones film based on books by Helen Fielding, who is one of the executive producers of this film. Renée Zellweger returns as Bridget Jones. She's got two children, a daughter aged about 5 and a little boy aged about 8. Her husband has died and she is struggling as a single mum to bring up these two kids. Now, this is a 15 certificate for language and for adult behavior content, shall we say. And I went into this and I said to you last week, again, I'm not a massive rom-com fan. Okay. So I went into this thinking, okay, let's go in with an open mind. Let's see what they've done with the characters. Let's see where Bridget is at now. And you know what? I actually really enjoyed it. And the reason I really enjoyed it is despite the bad language and the other stuff, this is actually a very moving film. I cried. I'll be honest with you, I sat in my seat and I found myself welling up more than once. And the reason is that you've got Bridget trying to bring up these two kids, and she's got all her friends around her from previous movies, including Hugh Grant. And she is really, really struggling, and her kids are doing their best to help her. And there's one scene at a Christmas Carol concert where her son sings a song that his dad used to sing to him. And in the film, in the audience, there isn't a dry eye. In the cinema, in the audience, there isn't a dry eye. It's really, really moving. She falls in the first part of the film for a younger guy. Guy's about 15 years younger than her. That relationship is always going to be doomed to fail. You can see that coming from the start. She then meets one of her son's school teachers with whom she goes on a camping trip with the school kids up to the Lake District, a school trip to help. Some beautiful shots of the Lake District. I mean, again, we're seeing on the big screen, Lake District is gorgeous. And Bridget falls in love with this teacher and he falls in love with her. They released it for Valentine's Day. I would have, if it had been me, tried to get it out at Christmas, because the film builds up to Christmas. And we finish on New Year's Eve in the film. She gets her old job back as a TV producer, which she's more than capable of. And, you know, as I say, there's some stuff in it that really is 15 certificate stuff. But I was impressed. I amazed myself at how much I came to care, particularly for the children. There's one lovely scene where on the dad's birthday, as I say, the dad who's played by Colin Firth is dead. He turns up as a ghost in this film. You know, she kind of imagines him, you know, and sees him. But there's one lovely scene. It would have been the dad's birthday. And her and the two kids get balloons and they walk out into a bit of moorland and they write letters to their dad saying how much they loved him. And she writes a letter to her dead husband saying how much I love you. And they tie these to balloons and they just let them go. very simple act. And you see the balloons floating away in the sky. In fact, there's one shot that is just sky with these three balloons, a red one, a yellow one, and a blue one in the corner of the screen. And then in the other corner of the screen, very tiny, you see Bridget Jones and the kids walking away. Wow. So you've got this big wide screen. They're very small in the left-hand corner of the screen. The balloons are in the top right-hand corner of the screen. But it's a really affecting shot. It really is. It's beautifully directed, this. Hugh Grant lights up the screen. I mean, I really like Hugh Grant. The last time we saw Hugh Grant, he was in a film called Heretic, which we talked about on the show, about a guy inviting some Mormon girls into his home. That, by the way, is now available to watch at home. Really interesting film about religion. Really interesting, Heretic. Hugh Grant is hilarious in this. He just lights up the screen. And at one point he goes to babysit for the kids, and she comes in and he tells them all the things he's been doing with the kids, you know. And he's kind of joking. Yes, I taught them how to fight, and I showed them this inappropriate movie and all that. And you know he's joking, but it's quite funny. So Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, as it's called. Yeah, I cried. But it is a 15 certificate film. So we've had a 12A, we've had a 15. Shall we go to a U?
That sounds good.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So one for all the family. And it is still half term. I don't know when half term is in your part of the world, but here currently it's half term. And cinemas are doing quite well this week because the weather's been bad. And I gather takings are pretty good nationally in cinemas this week. And the, sorry, my phone went off. And the, cinemas are doing some good takes. So this is called Dogman. This is a new animated film from DreamWorks, the people who gave us Shrek. Dogman is a film that is about a policeman and his dog. Trouble is, policeman and dog have an accident. In order to save policeman and his dog, surgeons take the head off the dog and put it on the man's body. And he becomes a policeman dog. Okay. Now, the criminal, the mastermind criminal that they're trying to catch in this film is Pasty the cat, who is a genius cat. I mean, he's an inventor. He's cruel. He's got a sidekick who keeps saying, you haven't paid me yet. And yes, I have. And she says things like, milk bottle tops are not currency. And then she says, and he said, well, I paid you again in gold coins. She said, they were chocolate. You know, he's got this sidekick that he keeps stringing along. Basically, it's about this dog man policeman wearing a police uniform, walks on two legs, but barks at everybody because he's got a dog's head, trying to capture this evil cat. Okay, it's one of these films where captions appear on the screen. So a character says, "Oh no," and the words "Oh no" appear on the screen. You know, and trust me, in the end, even buildings start coming to life and walking around. It is a crazy, wacky, wild, completely out there animated film. It's based on a series of books that were published in America for children. I just thought it was great fun. I just thought, honestly, it was great fun I think I said to you, in a Scooby-Doo kind of way, but it's manic. It doesn't give you for 97 minutes a chance even to breathe, because you're straight into the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. And the characters are running around and doing all sorts of wild and wacky things. There's all these wacky inventions on the screen. I saw it with an audience of children. There were a lot of children in the screening that I went to. They kept quiet for the whole 97 minutes, totally engrossed in it. So parents, if you're looking for something to take the kids to, maybe as half term comes to an end, if cinema treat, you could do a lot worse than Dogman. It is a film that is funny. It is a film that is wacky. It's a film that's very, very inventive. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to, bearing in mind that I'm a 62-year-old grumpy old man. And this film is aimed fairly and squarely at kids. I mean, I didn't get half the jokes, but I did hear some of the kids laughing. Now, that said, the film did make me think of our great late friend, Steve Legg. Because as we've often said on here, Steve Legg's favourite films were the Die Hard movies. Okay, there is a Die Hard moment in this film. It went over the heads of all of the kids who obviously haven't seen Die Hard. But for those of us who love Die Hard, there is a Die Hard moment in this kids animated film. And I sat there and I thought immediately of Steve and thought, Steve, you'd love that. So that made me well up a bit as well. But seriously, Dogman, great animated, wild, wacky. Give me a moment to breathe, please. You know, there's stuff going on, people running around all over the place, buildings coming to life. Really, really good fun.
Excellent.
So those are three out there at the cinema. There is a film coming out today, which I haven't seen yet, called I'm Still Here, which is set in Brazil and is a political thriller. It's been getting lots of nominations. I think it's up for best foreign film at the Oscars. I haven't seen it. I hope to see it before we speak again, and we'll report back on it. But that's really the only new one out today.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yes, some good films there. So a couple of slightly perhaps more adult films,
Yep.
and that one, as you say, it sounds as though there's some humour that kids will love, children would find very funny, but also a couple of more slightly more adult references.
Yeah, and I think they do that deliberately with these films. You can look at a lot of animated films aimed at kids, and you will see references to other films. And they do it, I think, to keep the adults happy. Because one of the problems I've encountered sometimes going into a kids' film is that the adults will sit there bored stiff and even start getting their phones out, which of course I hate. I mean, if somebody's got their phone on the cinema, I always ask them to turn it off. In fact, on the screen when you go to cinemas now, please turn off your mobile phones. It's such a distraction, such a horrible thing for people to have their mobile phones on. And in this, I was looking around a little bit because I was sat off to one side, and none of the parents had their phones up. They were engaged with it as well, as much as I was. So that was and I think they do this deliberately. They throw in a few references that the kids aren't going to get, but it's to keep the adults interested,
Yeah, well, that's a good sign when both can enjoy it, children and adults. So
yeah. Yeah, and you can come out talking about it. You go out of a McDonald's or whatever with your kids after and talk about the film. And got a great soundtrack, Dogman. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's colourful. Go in early because there was a little short film just before Dogman. I don't want to say too much about it, but there's a little short film just before Dogman, another animated film that runs for about 5 minutes. So make sure you get there in time because that's quite funny as well. It's about a gang of comedy criminals trying to explain to their social worker why they're late for their meeting. And there's a twist right at the end of that little 5 minutes. So go in and see that. It's a very, very good little funny short.
yeah.
We got sorry.
No, yeah, that's good. So there's a few new films out. You say there's a couple out on streaming now.
Yes, so let's talk about some films that are on streaming. Now, what we do on Pure, as you know, is I record a separate section for, I think, Andy B's show where we do 3 to watch and 1 to avoid. I'm just going to mention this now briefly. 1 to avoid, new film on Netflix. It's called 80 for Brady. Okay. Last year we had 6 different films where groups of ladies went on trips. Okay. This is a film about a group of ladies, got a very, very good cast, going on a trip to an American football match to see their hero Brady play football at the Super Bowl. It's terrible. It's awful. It's dire. It's pathetic. It's absolute rubbish. We'll say more about that when we do the 3-in-1. But also to watch at home, I just wanted to mention a couple of films. So on the iPlayer, we have got Phantom of the Open now on the iPlayer. Now, this is a film that tells a true story. So back in the 70s, there was a guy who wanted to be a great golfer. He was a terrible golfer. He was the world's worst golfer. And somehow he wangled his way and managed to get a spot into the British Open Golf Championship, arguing it's an open championship. That means anybody can enter, right? And he did a round of about 200 or something, and everybody else is scoring 50, and people say, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And they said, we must never let him in again. True story. The following year, he applied to go into the British Open Championship again, right? He applied under a different name and he put a disguise on. And he went and he played, and again, he clocked around 200, and nobody seemed to realize that it was the same guy. And he got away with this 3 years running, right? And the film tells the story. It is absolutely hilarious. It's a brilliant, brilliant film. If you're into it, my brother's into his golf. He's been out playing golf today, I think, or he's going out playing golf today. It's a really, really funny film, but it's a true story. And every year now in America, there is a golf tournament named after this guy. And what happens is that the winner is the person who gets the highest score, not the lowest score. So people are tapping the ball about an inch, this kind of thing. It's called Phantom of the Open, a film you can watch with the family. And it really is good. It's on the BBC iPlayer. And I would really recommend that for a great deal of fun. Just one more to watch at home that's new on Netflix that I noticed when I was scrolling through. So The Children's Act. This is a film about Jehovah's Witnesses. This is a film, we know that part of Jehovah's Witness thinking is that you don't have they don't allow blood transfusions. Okay. So very sadly, my member of my family was married to a Jehovah's Witness, and she would not allow, when their baby was born, the baby needed a blood transfusion, she would not allow it, and the baby passed away. This is a film where somebody has gone to court to try and stop Jehovah's Witness partner from not allowing their son to have a blood transfusion that he desperately needs. Okay. It is a full-blown heartbreaking drama. I saw it at the cinema a couple of years ago. It's now new on Netflix. Really, really, really worth seeing. Okay. But bring your tissues, and be prepared to be challenged by it. So those are the two that I would go for home. You will see new on Netflix, 80 for Brady. Avoid at all costs, people, please, because it's terrible. And we'll talk about that more in 3 months. So there you go. Those are two to watch at home.
Excellent. So yeah, there's a couple good ones there. That one about the golf sounds very, very amusing.
It's hilarious. It really is hilarious, and you need to see it. It's called Phantom of the Open, right, as opposed obviously to Phantom of the Opera. It's a really, 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 really funny film. True story, absolute true story. And this guy becomes famous. He's living in a little village, in the middle of nowhere up north, and so yeah, do look at Phantom of the Open. Excellent. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, Nathan, just before we close, is of course it was the BAFTAs this week.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a big one for award ceremonies, because for me, how can you say what is the best film when you're looking at a thriller, a musical, a science fiction film, a Western, a rom-com? To me, I wouldn't like to be a judge in these things. I would probably never would be a judge anyway, because I just couldn't do it. That said, what was good at the BAFTAs this week, and we'll recommend these two films because they're both available to stream. First of all, it was great to see two British films getting two of the major awards. So Conclave won 4 awards. Now, Conclave was one of the films of the year last year. This is, we're in the Vatican City. The Pope has died. Ralph Fiennes plays a cardinal who's been given the job of overseeing the election for the next Pope. So cardinals fly in from Catholic churches all over the world to assemble in the Vatican to vote for the next Pope. There are 3 leading candidates. But as the film progresses, we discover that each of those candidates has got a secret that would make them unsuitable to be Pope. But they are keeping these secrets to themselves because they want to be Pope. And things slowly it's almost like a detective mystery thing that's going on. It's a really great thriller. I was slightly let down by the ending, but a friend of mine who is a film reviewer went to see it 6 times. And absolutely loved it. Based on a book by Robert Harris, Conclave, really worth seeing, really worth streaming. If you can find, you find it online. It's available on Blu-ray and DVD. One of the best films of last year. The sets are particularly impressive. I mean, I've been to the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, and when you see it in this film, you'd almost believe they were actually filming in it. It's a real good replica. Ralph Fiennes is great as this kind of cardinal who is doing this detective work into the background of the 3 leading candidates for the next Pope, and beginning to realize that none of them are actually suitable. Okay. And there is a twist in the tale. So it really was good to see Conclave. Conclave got 4 BAFTAs. It was really good to see that. And of course, the BAFTAs are the precursor to the Oscars, which are happening next month. And it will be interesting to see how well we Brits do at the Oscar. I don't think it will do quite as well at the Oscars as it did here, but we shall see. The other film that picked up 2 awards at the BAFTAs on Sunday was the new Wallace and Gromit one, Revenge Most Foul, it's called. And I absolutely loved it. So this had a very, very, very limited run in cinemas in the build up to Christmas. It was then shown by BBC One on Christmas Day, just a few weeks ago. It's now available to stream, and eventually it's going to be coming to Netflix. It's on the BBC iPlayer. It's a film that takes us right back to the origins, to the very first ever Wallace and Gromit episode, where you'll remember they caught Feathers McGraw, the evil penguin, and they caught him and he was sent to live in the local zoo. Well, he is now back to get revenge on Wallace and Gromit. And Gromit has invented a little sort of walking, talking Alexa machine that will actually, it looks like a little elf. And this will do your gardening for you. This will do your cooking for you. And suddenly, Gromit finds himself with nothing to do. And what I love about Aardman's stuff is, it's claymation. It takes them years to make these films because every little movement, has to be, the character has to be moved and then filmed and moved and then filmed. And the fingers, it can take 6 months to film a waggle of a finger, And I love the attention to detail. There's lots of in-jokes. There's lots of jokes relating to other movies, as we've said. It's a kid's film, but there are lots of jokes. Honestly, it is a fantastic Wallace and Gromit film, and I would hardly recommend. And it won 2 BAFTAs. It won the Best Animated Feature, and BAFTA had a brand new category this year, and we were all wondering and hoping that Wallace and Gromit was going to win it, and it did. So the new category was Best Family Film and Best Children and Family Film, and that's something to look out for from now on. The Oscars don't have that as a category. Whether they will follow our lead and introduce it will be very interesting to see. They have a best animated film, but they don't have a best sort of family children's film. So it'll be very interesting to see if the Oscars follow a lead on that. But I was delighted for Aardman because, as I say, I absolutely love Wallace and Gromit, and I thought it was a really good fun film. I've watched it a couple of times, and the main reason for watching it again is that there's stuff going on in the background that you don't notice the first time. There's in gags and all sorts of stuff happening in the background. So I would just recommend that. So to watch at home, Phantom of the Open, children's act, avoid 80 for Brady like the plague. And congratulations to both Conclave and Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, for winning at the BAFTAs. Those 2 are definitely recommended.
Yes.
And I think that's a lot for this week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andy. I myself am very much looking forward to seeing that Wallace and Gromit film. Haven't had the chance yet.
No.
But Aardman rarely disappoints, does it?
Yeah, Chicken Run is an absolute classic. And in fact, there's talk of in fact, we did have a sequel to Chicken Run not so long ago. But Chicken Run is a brilliant film. There's a great takeoff of Indiana Jones in one of the scenes in Chicken Run, and I absolutely love Chicken Run. But I love Wallace and Gromit, and of course Peter Sallis, who was the original voice of Wallace, died. But the man that they brought in to do the voice of Wallace, you wouldn't notice a difference. So that's a good thing. And when you think that some years ago, the studios that they work out of burnt down in Bristol, and a lot of the stuff was destroyed in a fire. They have come back bouncing. They've literally bounced back. And this film is an absolute triumph. And I was so pleased to see, BAFTA and the Oscars are made up of the people who vote are actors, engineers, technicians, directors. You become a member of BAFTA when you've been in the industry for a while in one form or another. And, it's a prestigious award, even though I'm not really into award ceremonies, but it was great to see it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for bringing us up to speed with the latest in the film industry. Plenty of good films to watch at home, and also a couple of new ones in cinema. So, thank you so much, Andy. Great to hear from you again.
My pleasure. God bless, Nathan, and God bless everybody listening. Thank you.